So who likes to shop? Great, nice, nice. Well, here's a question. How do you like to shop? Are you a fan of the Target run? Or do you enjoy being at home alone scrolling through Amazon? Well, e-commerce has forever changed how we shop. It has also created an absence of physical space where daily social interactions can take place outside of the home, school, and work. The act of shopping once served as the glue that held many American neighborhoods together. You knew your local baker, your tailor, your grocer, and so on. How many of us can say that we have that experience today? I believe that landscape architecture can help facilitate these types of social interactions by transforming the underutilized parking lots located within shopping centers. Now, for those unfamiliar, landscape architecture is a professional practice that uses both art and science to balance out the natural and man-made world, to create immersive outdoor spaces and experiences. You may know landscape architecture as your local park or playground, or maybe you've had someone come in and design your own garden at home. But it also expands into the realm of public plazas, streetscapes, waterfronts, and even college campuses. The goal is to maximize the ecological and social potential of any given space. Now, I often get asked how I became interested in landscape architecture. And I always reflect back to this moment. I was an undergraduate architecture student studying abroad in Florence, Italy. And our design professor asked us to create an artist village, a place that was conducive to the community building between artists through a lived work experience. But the prompt was not just for the artists. We also had to think about what types of other public programming could take place. That meant how would other people, general public, step into the artist village and start to interact with them in many different ways. And I hadn't realized it, but my time abroad had already spurred and changed and influenced the way that I thought about public space and the needs of the public and communities to be able to come together, enjoy one another, learn from one another, and so on. And so from moving through piazza to piazza, we explored many different types of events and programming across the country. And from one day, you may experience a protest, the next, a concert, and maybe a week or so after that, an evening festival. And it was so fantastic to see both family and friends gathering alongside of different vendors providing your popcorn and your cotton candy while you're attending the event. And so you can imagine what I must have felt coming back home and facing a scene like this. 6-lane roads, everyone in their own car, speeding across from place to place, no real time for social interaction, and no real place. And it got me thinking, what is the American piazza? Well, the best that I could come up with is this. The shopping center. A string of stores where it's surrounded by a sea of asphalt parking. Not really conducive to social engagement, but more so to where I can park my vehicle. But more importantly, I think it's important to take a look at where some of these barren shopping centers take place. We find them most often in our disinvested neighborhoods across the city. And that specifically intrigued me. So much so that in grad school, I began a body of work called Retail Grounded that began to map out where shopping centers were located, specifically in the Northland neighborhood, my neighborhood growing up. And across the Morrisburg corridor, you can see a series of shopping centers, roughly 10 or so, not that far from each other, but all of them looking like that image that you see on the top right corner of the slide. barren. But more important, we have to take a look at who's actually living in this community, who is nearby. And the Northland neighborhood has seen an immense change in demographics, with new communities and new cultures moving in over the last 15 to 20 years. And it's great to see that change, and it's great to see that families and friends and restaurant owners and stores and shop owners are moving into these shopping centers. What used to be my Toys R Us growing up is now Saraga International Food Store. And what used to be a Hooters down the street is now a kebab shop. And it's great, and I love it. And it's so, potentially, so much full of life. But you have to go into just the shop in order to experience that. So how do we bring it out to the real world? And so as a teacher and a professor, I expanded this body of work to look out across the city and say, where are all the shopping centers? There are roughly 120 across the city of Columbus. And they come in all sorts of sizes and formats and layouts and ranges. But they mostly all look the same. Something like this, and like this, and like this. A string of big box stores surrounded by yet another sea of asphalt parking. Fun. The idea of the shopping center wasn't always meant to be so boring. What originally was supposed to be something that was a unifying act in the planning of shopping centers was to take place between a meeting of the minds of architects, designers, developers, but also landscape architects, planners, and city mayors. An act that was supposed to service the community. But due to greed and an increase in retail capitalism, we see the same recipe time and time again. From our regional malls to our community centers to your neighborhood strip mall, you know the ones. How do we make a change? And what's worse is that the problem is only getting worse. Recent headlines: Walmart is leaving the Great Southern Shopping Center. Let me repeat. Walmart is leaving the Great Southern Shopping Center. Usually, Walmart is trying to get into every single shopping center that we have across this nation. And even more so, we can look at aerial images and begin to track from year to year to year to just see, okay, well, where are the people going? Where are they parking their cars? How frequently? And we can understand, again, that this problem is getting worse. And so much so that for the last 20 years, within this shopping center in particular, we can calculate roughly 7 acres of land that has just sat barren. Empty, no activity going on. So why aren't we using these spaces more often? So we can look at this from a top-down approach. We can go to the code and we can say, hey, what are we supposed to do with the shopping center? And the code states that for every 10 parking spaces located in the shopping center, you're supposed to dedicate a 145 square foot plot of land that has a tree planted to help with shade and cooling down this type of environment. But unfortunately, some of our oldest shopping centers are older than the code itself, which means they're grandfathered in, and they don't have to follow these rules. And of course, what we see as a result is that for years and years and years, these types of spaces have been neglected and disused. But what's exciting is that the code, which is over 70 years old, has recently been repealed in order to be reviewed and replaced. And so the future is bright in that aspect. But again, what do we do with these centers at this moment in time? Well, we can look at it from an ecological standpoint. Sure, I'm a landscape architect, And yes, I deal with plants. So let's plant it. What does that look like? And we can map out different configurations of where the trees are going to go. We can plant this tree species that would help pull toxins out of the air and cool the space down. But is that really addressing the needs of the community? And so that's a question that I brought to my students. And I asked them to think about not only just the plants, I appreciate plants, but more than that. What about shade, water? What about creating spaces for relaxation, as well as spaces for recreation? And how can all of these different activities come together as a vibrant tapestry that we begin to get unusual pairings of activities, but also allow us to kind of flow back and forth between what's happening in the stores themselves and what's happening outside? And so this problem is not something that necessarily needs to take place overnight. What if we can spread this out over a longer period of time? Transforming a few clusters of parking spots here and there, but each year along the way, can we actually engage the community to give us feedback, have a group of people who are overseeing this problem, and bring their input into how the site gets transformed? And so we can imagine these unusual pairings and what they may look like. How would you feel playing basketball surrounded by a field of wildflowers and young kids picking those flowers nearby? Or maybe a skate rink party amongst a grove of trees while a family has their picnic underneath. So let us collectively imagine a future where our everyday spaces are not just places that we pass through, but become places that truly reflect our values, aspirations, and the beauty of our community. Thank you.